I think we wanted to talk a little bit about the reconciliation and infrastructure bill, right? It's ongoing story. Frankly, it's been an ongoing story for 6 months. It's almost exhausting to continue talking about it because it has just been a prolonged and ongoing disappointment. Despite all the glee of a lot of liberal, pundits early on, all that we've been seeing in the negotiation process of these two bills, which frankly there really shouldn't have been too much negotiation um, going on in the first place. The things that have been proposed are extremely popular. They're not even, I mean, they're things that I think would be beneficial to the American people. Don't get me wrong, but most of these are not things that are necessarily some kind of like radical departure from American society as it typically is sort of structured. The bigger ticket items are things that sort of help fighting childhood poverty. Some fairly modest but necessary moves to avoiding climate catastrophe, and continuation of some of these critical stimulus moves that you need coming out of we're still living in a global health pandemic that has meant that millions of people have been unable to work, along with the fact that so many people have passed away over the past few years. Right. The point here is that what Biden was putting forward in the first place was not some kind of radical departure, right? As one of those things, as like leftists and as socials, it's worthwhile supporting because the alternative, continuing with the status quo is far worse. We've gotten to the point now where they've taken so much out of this proposal, so much out of both of these bills that I think it has to be a no vote. Not only just for the strategic value of the progressives holding out. This is going to be one of those things that liberals are going to point to and say, look, we've addressed climate change. Oh, look, we've addressed infrastructure. Oh, look, we've addressed, this and that, right? So that sort of zaps a lot of political energy for dealing with these things in the future. But two, like specifically when you look at some of the provisions that have sort of stuck around within the infrastructure bill, there are things that they never should have been in there for the first place. That includes things like encouraging private sector ownership of publicly constructed infrastructure, basically selling off American infrastructure to Wall Street and people to sit around like little nasty trolls under the bridge and collect tolls on. The fact that it looks like they're going to be including means testing as a part of the child tax credit, something that will expire in the near future. I mean, the fact is it's a slap in the face to the negotiators on the progressive side, what it looks like they're going to be putting forward at the very end. And we have some more deeper breakdowns, but I'm just curious if you have any feelings on the top here.
Well, I mean, no, I think Bernie had the right when the $3.5 trillion agreement that has withered away came about. That was sold as like that's what the progressives got, and I think Bernie was one of the only people to say, like, actually, no, that's the compromise. And the signal here is that Joe Biden never took ownership of that $3.5 trillion, and so he allowed this to continue. So that's always what was going to happen when he said. When Jen Psaki's saying, well, we hear that Sinema and Manchin are still open to a reconciliation bill. We knew we whittled down like this. So, I have a thought experiment to pitch to you at the end. But
well, before we get there, I just want to be really clear because like this is going to be ongoing. I just want to like put some specifics on what we mean by, things that have been cut out. Medicare, they were going to originally lower the Medicare eligibility age to 60, which is a life and death move, and it's extremely popular. That's no longer going to be part of the bill. Of course, the misers in Congress who have incredible health insurance have decided once again that teeth are not a part of the human body. So they're pulling that from, federally run healthcare programs. Nor is going to help out people with hearing, vision, etc. Community college, which is like one of Joe Biden's big things, that's gone, which is absurd. And then as I was mentioning earlier, these child tax credits are going to be means tested, having a work requirement. Plus, they're going to expire very, very soon.
I think the work requirement might be out. That's like the one victory of the day.
Okay.
Speak to the bare minimum, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's still going to. There's still the fact that it's means tested, and it's actually quite strictly means tested, means that like you actually are going to have that kind of a cliff. You know, some people think that that happens with taxes. Like you actually are going to have that with the child tax credit. It's draconian. And again, all of these things are extremely popular, and I'm not sitting here trying to give the Democratic Party is a political opponent of mine. I think that they are structurally something that stands in the way of workers' power in the United States of America, right? Because they occupy a space on, you know, that's sort of in opposition to like the pure misers on the Republican Party, that people think that the Democratic Party is a kind of radical break, radical alternative, right?
Tax and
Um,
spend. Yeah.
you know, and the fact is that they aren't. So I'm not sitting here trying to give them free advice over here because I want to see them succeed. I'm sitting here and watching this, you know, catastrophe unfolding before all of us, and I'm sitting here just frankly as a political commentator, not understanding how a party that has all of these things that are extremely popular with voters, both Republicans and Democrat voters, and they're refusing to hold on to them and are instead running away from them. The fact is, you know, this is where you take off your political commentator pundit hat and put on your Marxist cap. I mean, the reason is because they don't want anything that could, in any way, shape, or form, become a building block for building, you know, increased workers' confidence and increased confidence for social movements, right? We understand the Democratic Party like works to try to ride public waves of outcry and frustration in the system and deflate those, and then to demand that everybody comes back and supports them again in the future.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
just want to
losing
say,
game.
like, they care about their electorate, and this is about shaping the electorate in a way that, like, they care about more than that than majorities.
Yeah.
So, like, Manchin and Cinema, like, they want the Democrats that don't give a fuck that this shit's getting whittled down and will be totally for it the entire time, and so they're winning when people are disappointed. And right, like, this is about getting the Democratic voter they want.
But
And
here,
I should say more than Manchin and Cinema. That's all those sorts of Democrats that they represent.
no, and we'll get into some of those other people in just a moment. Like, I do want to just note here, this is a very critical moment for our, you know, the strategy that we have had amongst like the Democratic Socialist left of trying to elevate certain peoples into Congress. This is not a show where we're going to sit here and blow smoke up anybody's ass. We're very critical of AOC and Bernie and Bowman and all these folks when they deviate. Frankly, I think this is exactly what happens when you don't have a political structure, a political party, right? And we just sort of have like these associations, right? They can be beneficial or they can be harmful. This is a moment where it needs to be very damn clear the difference between people like Bernie Sanders and frankly even AOC, right? And the mainstream of the Democratic Party. Look, I know there's a bunch of people who want to get into semantic, you know, debates about how radical AOC is and all that kind of stuff. Look, frankly, I agree with you about like the general political positions of most of these folks, right? But the fact is this, is that a lot of people see them as extensions of our movement. And it's very critical right now that they do not get tied into what is going to be a massive disappointment for all of these people who went out and said, this is the most, who were told, this is the most important election of your lifetime. We need to not only get the you know, the scary bad man Trump out, but also we're going to do all these things to help you, right? If you disappoint another group of people, which it frankly looks like they're going to, it needs to be made very damn clear who was against that movement in the first place, right? And that has to be the left wing, the progressive wing, the DSA wing, whatever you want to call them, of that movement. I wanted to just go really quickly to a piece here in Jacobin by our guest from last week, Branko Marcetic. It was a really great piece here, and I think it actually makes it very clear, just like the basic kind of strategy as to why you vote no here. The title is "There's no reason for progressives to vote for the watered down infrastructure bill," and he goes through a lot of these things point by point. He makes the argument, which is very true, that every time something like this happens, there's this kind of guilt trip that's brought up to you, like, oh, well, you want to take away this funding or that funding. You know what? Frankly, not frankly, the fact is that the people who took this away is Biden and Manchin and Sinema and the Democratic Party leadership, not progressives who are going to vote no on this. But anyways, the whole piece is really great. But the last bit I think is really smart. I'm just going to read the whole thing here. He says, in many ways, Manchin and the rest have done progressives a favor. Had they stuck to, say, just killing the clean electricity standard while leaving everything else in place, or only watering down one or two safety net provisions, congressional progressives might have been facing a truly difficult choice. Instead, they've gone so far in undermining the bill that there's little to no rationale for progressives to be morally blackmailed into accepting it. They should call Manchin's bluff, use the party's slim majorities to stand firm and block both of these bills, and leave the corporate Democrats in the corner they've painted for themselves until they're ready to make concessions. Morally, tactically, and politically, they'd be right to do it. Anything else is not just a mistake, it's a betrayal. And I think that that is, frankly, the language that we need to be using on this. I think it's a clear cut case.
Yeah, I endorse that. I have a here's the other thing. Well, first, what I think will happen is, and what I think we all hope won't happen is they vote for it and then apologize for it. Now, here's the alternative, and this is only, and I don't know what these would be. Like if, say, for certain PRO Act provisions were included, or certain things that actually mattered, right? Like that you could really see, like, damn, I want that. Yeah, we talked with Paul O'Connell about a break strategy with labor. Like, what if, and maybe this would undermine the like break, but what if you take the vote and a week later then break with the party? And I don't know what that actually means, but I'm saying like then you take the material benefit, but then you actually like say we're fucking done with this. Like we'll like caucus in certain areas, but like that's the only thing, because then you undercut some of these sorts of. And I'm just trying to think of a third way here. So, but I'm curious what you think about that.
I mean, break from the Democratic Party, becoming independents.
Some sort of, and I again, like,
I mean, if they had the courage to do that, we would be in a better position.
They would have done something a lot.
Well, I mean, I don't even know. No, I'm saying, Matt, like, if they have the courage to do that, we will be in a better position than we are today. I don't know if we're seeing it yet. I'm going to say, like, because I don't think it's fair to sit around when it looks like people are sort of standing firm. Everything that I've seen today, it's 9:30 Central Time, October 27th. AOC seems to be standing very firm on saying that she's going to vote no on these things, right? That can change, of course, but I'm happy to see. I think that this really is the only choice. I think, if nothing else, like let alone like the kind of like, paperwork version of like being independent, making it very clear to people that, Pelosi and AOC are not, on the same side, I think is critical. And I think that if you're a casual observer of politics, right, you're not going to catch on to that. And frankly, if you spend a lot of time paying attention to politics, you probably would, very understandably, sort of, consider some of this stuff to be, I don't know, a space for progressives to sort of be seen and heard while, certain kind of more reactionary agendas are pushed through, right? Well, this is what happens when you're out of power and you're weak, right? And I don't want to get into a whole thing about like the personalities and like of these elected officials themselves, right? But I just think that this is just, if you want line in the sand moments, this is one that you really can't be wavering on.
It's not about personalities. It's about all the progressives got put on the oversight committee to make propaganda and nice clips when they bring in people to like, interrogate them and hold them to account, but not on any of the committees that actually draft this shit. So, there's a Bernie quote that I don't like, which is, I'm seeing if I can find it, but basically the extent of, this is not a problem with the president. This is a problem with two senators, right? And like, look, if you can get shit with that strategy, like that, I'm fine with that. But it right now, it's very much seems like it's a problem with Democratic leadership and like the theory of change that Biden promised he could get shit done with, like the fucking PRO Act. Yeah. And it comes in and it runs into the exact obstacles everybody fucking knew, because this party is too corrupted by money to govern. And like I think like it's genuinely correct that Manchin Sinema did not want this majority because I don't know.
I think Sinema is sitting pretty. Yeah. Let me show you 2 points from the that I think are actually a little instructive about like the structure of the Democratic Party. This is one thing that Ryan Grimm noted earlier today. And it's something we've sort of hinted at on this show. It shouldn't come as too much of a surprise to folks, but it's worth noting again that the fixation on the villains is probably mistaken. Ryan Grimm says rotating villain is a badly overused explanation, but it applies sometimes, and this looks like one of those times. And the tweet that he is quote tweeting here is from Greg Sargent that says, the idea that Manchin is to blame for killing the billionaire's tax break is too convenient. Pelosi privately slammed the proposal hard at a meeting this week, aides tell me, and other Democrats are waiting in the cloakroom to kill it with no fingerprints. That is one of the advantages that Sinema and Manchin, I don't know, that's like one of the bonuses that they provide to the Democratic Party is that, like, everybody's mad at them, focusing on them. There's plenty of people behind the scenes who are happy to see this happen. Like, frankly,
and that's why, like, whether they take the bill or not, you have to be like, fine, you're the Manchin Cinema Party, and that has to be the message going from here on out.
So, I mean, they're sitting there and they're prepared for this. And I just wanted to note, I mean, we've talked a lot about the way the media covers these kind of things, but I just want to note the way that this extremely inefficient bill is being covered by groups like Politico, and if nothing else, I could get people who aren't sort of familiar with that DC world to know just like the BS that comes out of Politico. I'd rest easy. Let me share with y'all this. This is the spin that's already coming on this stuff, right? Here we go. Democrats are coalescing around spending somewhere north of $500 billion on climate change. Let's put that into context.
Let's sell that.
The context here, by the way, is that the United States just agreed to spend trillions more dollars on the Pentagon budget, and that was not even a political fight by any stretch of the imagination, right? It's a bunch of stuff about what's going on, and it's not final. But I just want to note this last bit because this is the spin that we're going to see a lot more. If you care about climate change and someone told you going into this year that a coal state senator from a state Trump won by 40 points would back, however reluctantly, $500 billion plus in investment, wouldn't you take that? And I would say no, because that amount of money spent over a decade is far from what would even remotely be considered to be adequate. The proposals that are being funded with that money are nowhere near the kind of like the actual, like, not just the money, right? Not just the top line, how much money's going into it, right? What is that money is actually being used for is not adequate for addressing climate change. And no, I do not find it to be encouraging in any way that a bloated billionaire is sorry, millionaire is standing in between us and like meaningful climate legislation. No, I don't find any kind of silver lining or hope or truth in that.
Yeah.
I find it to actually be extremely devastating. But that's the kind of spin. It's like, oh, well, they're being so greedy and they're not realizing how much work has gone into the negotiation. No, it's bullshit. This was the kind of deal. This was the story that was told to the American people in electing Biden. They were going to finally take some of these things seriously. And now they've been in power for, we're approaching a year. And we're nowhere, we're not in a better situation when it comes to dealing with climate change. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what more do you need to say? $500 billion. Really?
Over 10 years,
Over 10 years. Like that that's like 3 billionaires.
Honestly. And it's fuzzy money too. I mean, it's just, everybody knows the BS and the spin that they're trying to put on this kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is the point. It's like you have to be able to say no, and no, don't let anybody do this moral blackmail bullshit. It's very clear. There was a bunch of policies that were, frankly, not as far as we needed to go. They were watered down multiple times until we got this paltry amount. And then even then, at the last minute, even more was cut. I think Branko is 100% right. Make those people who want to be the public face of austerity be the public face of austerity. Put it on them. And do not at the last minute do the bidding of the Democratic Party's corporate donors, which want to create a bunch of theater so that they could continue having these politicians in their pocket while those politicians were able to maintain the support with the base that they're relying on to win elections, right? Don't let them do that shit. If the Democrats get elected saying that they're going to do this and that, tell them they have to fucking do it, right? And don't be the useful idiot that allows them to get away with doing nothing because you're allowing yourself to be morally blackmailed. The fact is, they've put themselves in this position, and let them deal with the consequences of failing to follow through on what was promised to people.
I want to share this. It might take a little bit here, but it's a great. Let me see 1 second here. Where's my share thing? It's from the math problem Democrats face. It's like, how do we shave this so we can get it through? And I have this here.
Oh boy, I think I did this too.
Oh, did you show this? So
I didn't know. Don't bring it up again because it's good. I'm pretty sure I did this. Oh, let me see. Oh, never mind. No.
So this is kind of basic, like the math problem Democrats face to win over their most centrist members. The money vampire funnels. To win over their most centrist members, the Democrats will need to fit all their wishes into the smaller box, and blah blah blah. Like
all their this is the shit that this is why like political journalism is so cheap, right? Yep. Your wishes.
All this stuff, child tax credit, renewable energy, blah, 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 blah. It needs to go into this box, right? And then this is a great reply here. Just for fun, I threw in defense spending. This is what all this stuff looks like.
Yeah.
Right? Against like what fucking enemy?
No, I mean, I'm sorry, that's it. End of story too. This is why there's all this kind of fighting about nuts and bolts of the, of what we need to be doing. Remembering that we are prepared to spend over $8 trillion just on the Pentagon, right? Over the next 10 years, and we're sitting here sort of fighting like crazy to make sure that we have a planet that has clean air, that children aren't sort of anguishing in unnecessary poverty. It's nonsense, and it's just something that we just cannot be complicit in. I'm just like, that's it. If you want things to change, you just can't play ball with them, because it's amazing how much we talk about the change in rhetoric from the Democratic Party under Biden. And tactically, it's the same old, I don't know. It's like, it almost makes it a little boring, right?
Yeah. That there's
to talk and think about this, that like you knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, like remember like 6 months ago when we're talking about this new era of like government spending, and we have to be savvy, and we're going right back to the old days.
Oh yeah. Should we play this video?
Yeah, Obama.
Yeah, so I haven't seen this yet.
This is gonna make you happy.
It's on theme.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. This is.
You can tell us to vote harder, I'm hoping.
Get ready to hear this for the next 3 years.
I know why sometimes folks just get tired, and maybe they say, I'm not going to bother voting this time. But here's the thing, we can't afford to be tired.
Yep.
I remember in 2016, folks said, I'm not inspired. Obama was okay, but we didn't get everything I wanted, so I'm just going to sit it next time. And y'all know how that turned out. That's what happens when you're not paying attention. That's what happens when you become complacent or you let your frustration lead to inaction. We cannot afford to be tired because of the young people here and the ones who are coming. I know it's hard. Phil doesn't claim he's going to solve every problem in New Jersey right away. I didn't solve every problem when I was president. But the fact is that as hard as it is, we can still make it better. It's hard to undo the legacy of discrimination that goes back centuries, but we can make it better. It's hard to deal with special interests who want to keep the status quo when you're trying to make the economy more fair and just, but you can make it better. It's hard in a big country where people disagree to get everybody moving in the same direction, but we can do better than we're doing. We really can. We can make it better. And when you've got the right person in the job, we might not get every single person employed, but we can get more people, more jobs. We may not get every child the best education in the world right here in Newark. We can give a lot more kids better education here in Newark. I didn't get every American health care, but boy, we got a whole lot more people in America health care. It makes a difference when we decide to make things better. When you've got somebody in your corner who's shown you that they will work for you, who has a track record of accomplishment. You got to go out there and work for them. Not because everything's going to suddenly be perfect, but because it's going to be better. And you're preventing others from making it worse.
Hope and change. Just wait.
Wait. Damn.
I mean, it's the funny thing about him is he's so tapped out of politics too to lecture anybody about caring or fighting. I mean, this is somebody who is very, very happy being an influencer who is sometimes called upon to be the wise statesman, to excuse the failures of his own party. The fact is that what happened in 2016 was not voters were just so lazy and sad. It's because people would become so disillusioned that after being told that there was going to be this massive shift that you're talking about coming up into power and challenging these systems. I mean, people, forget that we were coming when Obama becomes president. We're in the middle of this financial crisis. We're in the middle of this like pivotal moment in our history, right? Where things felt really bad, but they also felt wide open, right? And people thought there was going to be a reckoning. And instead, what happened? Obama brought all the people back in who caused that first financial crisis to help him craft the laws and the rules that would then dictate the next 8 years of his presidency, right? That then led to an extreme explosion of wealth inequality in the United States, a system that was somehow even more set up to make sure that people with financial interests and financial power were going to have access to more money and more capital in the future. And the fact is that people, to sit here and say, oh, people didn't show up to vote because they were lazy or they were too sad. People didn't show up to vote because they saw an extremely corrupt party anoint one of their members, completely ignore a democratic process, and put forward one of the most unpopular presidential candidates in recent memory. I mean, somebody who people just loathed for no reason, not to make things better, but to pay off the powerful, to pay off the people you owe favors to, right? And that's what all this shit is about at the end of the day. It's just, it's absurd to listen to that.